first of all, I'm just taking out all the drawers and taking off the doors. I'm just removing all the hardware and laying everything out. Everything's in pretty good nick, it's just really dirty. So I just want to give it a good clean all over because I'm not going to paint the inside, I'm just going to paint the outside. So get it all clean, see how it comes up, and go from there. So I've got all the doors off, the drawers are out, and we've just got our bare piece here. So now I'm just going to give it a nice deep clean. It does have a lot of this particle board on it, so you've just got to be careful with the water, nothing too heavy. I'm just going to give it a nice rub with a microfiber cloth, give it a vacuum, and then we'll just get a damp cloth to wipe it down. Now with this drawer here, I want to remove these pieces here, so it's just a plain drawer. It should be pretty easy. I've noticed it's just got 2 nails in the bottom holding it in because they felt pretty wobbly when I was touching them. So I'm just going to use an old hammer, go from the side and knock them out. Alright, so there it is, they're out. See, it's split a little bit on one of them. That's totally fine. I'm going to fill that, fix it, and the bottom of these drawers I think I'm going to put like an inlay so you won't even see it. I decided to sand the tops of just the drawers as I realised there's actual wood behind it, so that'll look beautiful if I can stain that. I can't do the same to the doors because they are just particle board, but this will come up really nice. So I'm just hacking away at the sanding, just using my mouse sander and slowly revealing that beautiful grain underneath. Alright, so that's one drawer all sanded and ready to go. It's pretty good on the top. It's actually just a thin bit of wood adhered to some particle board, so you've got to be really careful because when you sand that it does flake and just it can get ruined and ruin the whole piece. So luckily I've seen that and it looks like it's still intact and the top looks pretty good. So I'm just cleaning the inside of this piece. It's got, I don't know if you can see, but the underneath of the shells and the sides have got a bit of texture on it, and so it's got lots of spider webs and crap just in it. The easiest way I've found to clean this is just using a hard bristled brush and just scraping it down the side, and you can see all the crap that is coming off that, and it's working really well. So I've got to give this whole piece a really good clean before we get any paint on it. Alright, so the top of this piece is pretty bad, and it is literally just a thin piece of that particle board attached to the frame. So what I'm going to do is go round. I'm just using this flat spatula and I'm just going to lift it off, and I'm going to put a whole new top on this piece so that it just looks nicer in general and is obviously going to paint a lot better. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Now when I pulled the top off, there was a bunch of little nails just sticking up, so to get rid of them I just use the back end of my hammer. There were a couple smaller ones in the back end that I couldn't get with my hammer, so to get them out I just grabbed a pair of pliers and they pulled right out. Okay, so I've just fixed up some of the damaged parts of the cabinet. I've just used some of the Dixie Belle Dixie Mud in the white. Super easy to apply, just use a spatula, put it over the damaged area. Once that dries, we'll go back in with our sander, make it nice and smooth. So I've done the same with the doors here, just put some Dixie Mud in the divots that I could see on the front, and as I said before, once it dries, we'll go back in with the sander and sand it nice and smooth, and you won't even know there was any damage on the front of this. Now if you can just leave it, they were just minor ones, but you will notice it in the light. So if you, especially you're going to sell your piece, you want to make sure you're giving a quality product. So fill it in, it's easy to do and it looks awesome. Alright, so I have filled one of the holes here from the drawers, just because when the handles were on, I noticed one of them was a bit skew. So the right side, it was all right, but the left one was just drilled a bit too high. So I have just used some of the Timber Mate wood filler. This one is the pine that I've used here. So as you can see, it's a lighter colour fill, so it goes really well with my wood. The Timber Mate range has quite a number of different colours. So if you've got darker wood, lighter wood, a bit more red, you'll be able to find a shade that works for you. This piece should be okay. You won't really see the pre-existing hole because it's going to be covered up by the handle anyway, and I'm going to stain this nice and dark so you won't even see it once it's done. So I was having a play around with the colours that I already have at home. I really just want to avoid spending any money on this piece, and it is one I just found on the side of the road, and I just wanted to use what I've got and make a quick flip. So I do want to go green on this one, but it appears I have slightly too dark and slightly too light. These are the other options here, but I'm going to try and just mix together a couple of the colours that I have, and something in between these two here is really what I'm after. Alright, so now I'm going to prime this piece. For that I'm just using the Sinister 123. Now this is the water-based one. They have a red one as well, which is the shellac base, which is really good for blocking stains. It's probably the best one. But for this one, I'm not too fussed. I'm just going to paint over the existing paint that's on there. But it is a bit shiny, so I just want to make sure that my paint grips to it nice and well. I've given it a light sand all over, and I'm going to just run over with the 123 before we pop on our paint. So I've finished the first coat and I'm just waiting for it to dry. Just let it sit for an hour and then you can go in with another coat. I am going to do 2 coats on this one just because it's extra shiny, and I really want to make sure the paint sticks with no problems. So next up I'm going to paint the drawers. So I'm just taping up the edges so that none of it gets on the front because we're going to stain that. So I'm just using some painter's tape and going around the whole edge of both drawers. For the paint of the drawers, I'm just using one by Dulux. It's just a mist tint that I got from Bunnings off the reject shelf. So look, I have no idea what colour it is, but it is just one of those plain colours that I can use as a base colour, or I might just choose to leave it as is. So we'll paint that on both drawers, let it dry and see how it comes up. So I did my second coat of primer and let that dry. And then for the exterior colour, I decided to mix my darker and my lighter green together. And I've come up with this one here. So again, it's a custom colour. I can't really tell you what it is, sorry. So I'm just going over the whole piece now in the green. Alright, so I've decided I'm going to add a little detail to the side of the drawers, and for that I'm just using this stencil that I have. I think I'm going to use the top one here. I'm just going to hold it against here, and I'm going to use the same green that I'm using on the outside over the top of the grey. Alright, so I've got all the hardware off. I'm just going to give it a clean, and then I'm going to give it a spray with this Rust Guard by White Knight in this satin black. Just because I want all the hardware to be black, and rather than buy new stuff, I'm just going to use the existing hardware. As you can see, the hinges here have a lot of caked on paint, and I'm just going to use, I've just got a 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just sanding it until the paint comes off. Here's one I've just finished, so it's come off really easy. So it doesn't really matter about scratching it because it's really fine. It's not going to leave too much of a mark, and I'm going to paint over it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do the next 3 and clean them all off, and then we'll give them a spray. Alright, so they're all clean and ready to go, so I'm just going to go ahead and give them a spray. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and paint our second coat. Everything is all nice and dry. Now when I created this colour, I did it from a darker green, which is this one here. So, don't know if you can really see that, but anyway, I found that one was just a little bit too green for me. So I had a grey paint, which I mixed in to get this lighter colour, which I ended up using on the whole piece. Now I still have some of the darker green left, which I just showed you. So what I'm going to do is just a tiny bit of blending around the edges to just give the illusion of a little bit of shadowing. So I'm going to do that by using the dark green with the colour that I mixed up. Now I just finished painting the drawers. I went back over them because I decided to actually paint them green instead of leaving them the blue, just because obviously the green matches a little bit better. I didn't think I'd have enough paint left over, but I do, so I went ahead and coated them with the green, and I'll go back through with the stencil on the sides as well, because I do think that looked really pretty. Primer is all on, so I've just got to wait for it to dry now, and it recommends 12 hours before you can put your top coat on there, so we are done for today. So it's all dry and ready for stain, and for the stain I'm using the Brown Japan and the Feast Watson. Just using a foam applicator brush to pop it on, as I find that the easiest way to smoothly apply any kind of stain. Just going to let that sit for a few minutes and then come in with a rag and wipe off the excess. So here I'm just coming in with the rag and wiping off the excess, and as you can see the stain looks beautiful underneath, and you just want to use a nice gentle pressure when rubbing it off. For the top coat I'm just using the Cabbots Clear in the water base. To apply it I'm just using a wide bristled brush just to get maximum coverage. Afterwards I'm going to go over the piece with some furniture wax, and I'm going to use some black wax as well, just to highlight the corners and the edges to give it a bit of character, add a little bit more depth to the piece. when I was doing the clear coat, I noticed that this particular drawer had a couple of blemishes, so I had to just sand them back out, and I'm just restaining it now. I'm just letting it sit and I'm going to wipe it off. Everything else is just drying, and once that stain is dry, I'll go over it with the clear coat as well. This is the other drawer. This one's got the top coat on it and it is just drying. So it's all done, and now I just need to do the top. I've got it all measured out, so I just need to cut it up, and we're going to glue and nail it on. So I didn't get a chance to film it, but I did swap out the handles for the cupboard doors and added that black wax on as well. As you can see, it's come up really nice and added some great character. So I'm just using a handsaw to cut out the top for the cabinet. Now, as you can see here, I'm not taking any real safety precautions, so please do not do what I am doing here. Make sure that you wear some fully enclosed shoes and some safety glasses whilst you are cutting. So I've applied the stain. I am just letting it dry. It just looks a bit streaky at the moment because it is sort of in the process of drying, but you can see it's nice dark shade which will match my drawers perfectly. Alright, so my cupboard is nearly done. I came across one little problem when we were moving it. It just broke the side here. Now this is just really thin like particle board, and I've already painted it. It's not going to really repair well. It's actually kind of like torn. So what I'm going to do is make trim for both sides. I've just got this piece of decorative wood. I'm just going to cut it to size and adhere it to the side here. Now there is a strong frame to nail it into on the inside, so that'll cover up the damage and make it extra durable for the person who is going to own this piece next. Now to cut my wood, I've just measured it and marked the length that I need. And I'm just using a handsaw. I don't own any power tools. I am slowly going to be owning some, but I don't at the moment. So the old handsaw is how it's going to go down. So I've got my two pieces of wood cut perfectly to size. I'm just going to sand the edges so they are nice and smooth, and then we'll pop a coat of paint on them. Alright, so I'm adhering the top to the cabinet. Now I am gluing this down because I don't want any nails to be showing through, and plus it's really thin, so it's barely even worth nailing it in. So I've got some glue all the way around. It's just got some boards there to spread the weight, and I'm going to leave it clamped down for 24 hours. Alright, so the top is attached and it is all dry. So now all that's left is to pop on my top coat. And ladies and gentlemen, she is nearly done. Alright, so I decided to add these little accents to the side. To adhere them, I'm just using some liquid nails because it is just this super thin board on the other side. But I just wanted to add that because it is thin, and it'll just give it some extra durability when being moved around, and it also looks nice. Alright, so the top coat is all dry. I've just gone over it with a fine piece of steel wool, and then I'm going to go in there with a second and third coat of the top coat, and then this piece will be done.